Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jay, and I'm here to tell you about my sponsor, W Energy. Now, what is W Energy? Well, I'm going to tell you because I myself use W Energy. Here I've got this Calio cream. It's got a great flavor to it, and not only that, it is clean energy. Energy that's not going to make you crash, not give you the jitters. I've been looking for a reason to drop all my old energy drinks that were unhealthy for me. Too much additives, too much trash in it, too much stuff that's going to make you crash, make you fall asleep at the end of the day. Not W. So how can you get your hands on some W to try? I'm going to tell you how. And I'm going to tell you how to save some money while you do it. Go to www.w.gg and at checkout, type in my new promo code, and it is Who Else? That's right. The promo code at www.w.gg is Who Else? Because, hey, who else but me, your boy Jay? I wouldn't steer you wrong, right? And when you do, make sure you tag your boy. Let me know you got some, you tried it, and I know you're gonna love it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today, my guest is Kenn Scott, who played Raphael both in the very first live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and the second one in some fashion. And we'll get into that here shortly once the interview starts. But when I got the opportunity to talk to him, I had to jump all over it, just because of how big of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan I was as a little kid. And there was once upon a time when, I don't know if this was singular to where I grew up or the entire nation. It kind of felt like the entire nation. But there was one point in time where when Power Rangers came along, Ninja Turtles started losing some of its dominance as like the thing for that age group, which, you know, I was a part of, obviously. But I never faltered. Like, I loved both, but it seemed like people became less interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the most part and more interested in Power Rangers. And Power Rangers ended up taking over the planet at one point, and Turtles did start to fade a little bit, but not me. Like, I was always a huge fan. And both the 1 and 2 movies, 1 and 2 and 3 later, and I know a lot of people don't like 3, but I love 3. But 1 and 2 were in a regular rotation at my house. So again, when his name came across my board, I was like, fuck yes, I would like to talk to this guy. Just to hear stories, you know, because it was such a big part of my childhood growing up. So, and like I said, we'll get into that here a little bit more, obviously during the interview. But yeah, it was a great opportunity and a great honor to talk to somebody who was such a big part of my life, even though they didn't know it. But anyway, enough of my babbling. We're just going to go ahead and get into this one. But before we do, I just want to say, wherever you're watching this or listening to this to, make sure you like and subscribe to wherever that platform that you're listening to is, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, whatever you're listening to. Subscribe to the show. That definitely helps. And also, next month starts my 5 weeks of Halloween program. You can go to patreon.com/The Rose Show Pod right now and see the entire lineup for next month. It is a good one. I'm very excited about this, and I know you are too as soon as you see it. Some surprising faces might be on there, and some people who are in certain genres that I've never talked to before. So find out who that is now by going to www.patreon.com/The Rose Show Pod and join for free. It's free. What do you have to lose? Absolutely nothing. You have everything to gain when it comes to The Rose Show. And again, it helps your boy out. And pretty soon, I'm not saying anytime soon, but pretty soon, that's going to be your #1 source for everything Rose Show coming up. So make sure you join. I'm done talking. Here's a word from my sponsors. Let's do it. All right, everybody, it's time to stop and let you know about today's sponsor of the show, Crazy Martin's in Piqua, Ohio, one of my favorite places in the entire world to go to. Crazy Martin's has provided their customers with quality products for over 20 years, from ashtrays to water pipes and everything in between. Stop in, check out their selection, and of course, check out their pinball machines. With over 20 pins to choose from, there is something for everyone. Crazy since 1996. I don't just say this about every place. I love going to Crazy Martin's. I've always loved going to Crazy Martin's ever since I was of age to go to Crazy Martin's. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. Me and my wife go there almost every Sunday to play pinball machines. It is one of the funnest spots in Ohio you could possibly find. It is in Piqua, Ohio. Check out their website at www.crazymartins.com. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? Now, before I get started today, I've just got to do this. I've never been able to do this before, and right now is the only opportune time I'm going to be able to do it. So here we go. I play right field. It's important to know. You got to know how to catch. You got to know how to throw. Out here in right field where the dandelions grow. Now, if you know, you know, but I'll explain here a little bit. That was an intro to a commercial on the VHS tape of the guy who's in front of me right now of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was a Pizza Hut commercial, and actually Goldberg was in it as well. Fun fact, if you don't know who Goldberg was, he was in the Mighty Ducks. But I know that clip because I've watched this guy so many times from the 38 years I've been alive. I've memorized it. It's crazy. Now, for the actual introduction part of this, my guest today is known for his multiple roles in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, number 1 and 2, Secret of the Ooze. He's done a whole lot of stuff that I've found in my research of him, including directing training for the CIA, which was wild to find out, but we'll get into that here a little bit more. Multiple movies as an actor and a director as well. It is Kenn Scott, my friend. How are we doing today?
Jay, I'm doing fantastic, man. It's good to be talking to you. And that was a great version of that song and shows you how much conditioning and behaviorism works.
Yes. That is a perfect point. And that's what's crazy. I'm 38 years old right now, and I must have been watching that movie for at least 33 years of my life. And for some reason, I still remember that. It's wild. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct.
The Pizza Hut marketing people love that.
Yeah, especially back then. People don't remember like just how much Pizza Hut was garnered towards kids in the early 90s. Like they had all the cool hand puppets for like the Casper movie that came out. There was multiple like Muppet Babies, like Christmas edition things. Yeah, they were excellent back then. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, to start off today, I just kind of want to get your background, and we'll get into the obvious stuff a little bit later. But I'm interested to find out, because obviously, for like I said, you were in the Ninja Turtle movies. Were you always into martial arts as a younger person, or was this something that you learned within time? And just kind of walk us through what it was like being a young Kenn and how you got to that point.
I was born in New York, lived there till I was 5 with New York parents, and then we all moved down to North Carolina. So I kind of grew up in North Carolina, and when I was young and we just moved there, I started playing soccer. And when I used to walk through the local gym at the soccer fields, everybody was in these pajamas, jumping around and kicking and everything. And I just thought it was really interesting and kind of cool. I didn't do anything about it for a while. And then in the 7th grade, some guy messed with me in the hallways of the school, and I just felt like a guy got me in a headlock, and I was like, screw that guy. So I was I went to my dad and I said, hey, I want to go take karate. Because I once saw this guy in my school who took karate, kicked this other guy in the head, and I thought it was really cool. So I said, hey, I want to go take karate. So I started taking karate, and that was the seeds of now something that 44 years later I still do in my life. It started my martial arts, and so I consider myself a martial artist all the way to today. I still train and do things. But within there, when you're young and you get into martial arts, you love everything martial arts, movies and comic books and whatever supports this very niche thing that you're into, especially back in the late 70s and early 80s. It wasn't as widespread.
Sure.
There was no MMA. There was no nothing. So if you took karate, it was almost like you played Dungeons and Dragons in a way. You had your group of people that did that, and you did your thing. So you just ate up whatever you could in media, and there was no internet. So if a Chuck Norris movie came out, man, you were at the movie theater. If Michael Dudikoff as American Ninja, Sho Kosugi, that was my mythology, right? That's for me, I love that stuff growing up. Anyway, as I watched that stuff, it imprinted on me. That became my mythology and my where I saw my heroes. And so my goals were set in that way. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be an action hero in the movies. I decided that I wanted to be Jean-Claude Van Damme and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Lee and just whatever I could. So I set my goals on doing that from the time I was an early martial artist until I went through growing up and learning how to ride horses and motorcycles and fence and take acting and just all that stuff on my way to doing that. And then ultimately, through all these crazy things that happened, I got the opportunity I was looking for right out of college to audition for a very famous martial arts movie. And so martial arts started for me as an organic thing in my life and in interest, stayed with me, but opened all those doors for me to eventually be the reason why we're sitting here talking today.
Yeah, and that is a very good point, and that's something that I forgot until you just mentioned that. It was really weird because I remember at one point in time, because again, I was always a Ninja Turtles fan, even from a very younger age. I wanted to take karate and I tried it, and I remember being looked at like I was a dork. And that's odd because you're a badass if you can get to that point. But back then, yeah, it wasn't looked at as the most coolest thing for a while until really what you said, like MMA came out. That changed the whole perspective of it, which was strange. Like, I don't know. It was a weird tag that people put on people that were into martial arts and stuff like that. And you're right. There wasn't a lot of that. There wasn't streaming. There wasn't a whole lot of access to that kind of stuff. For me, it was just like our local library had VHS tapes. So every once in a while, there'd be something on VHS that would come and that I could watch. Jet Li movies. Obviously, I guess you could say Sylvester Stallone, not Rocky, but like more of the Demolition Man, the stuff where it was like beat 'em ups and stuff like that. Wesley Snipes, another martial artist that was readily available. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff back then, and like for my time frame, it'd be the early '90s that was really available to everyone. So as you said, you got an opportunity to audition for the movie. So how did that come about exactly? And when you were doing it, one of the things that always made me wonder, like, was it super hard to do those stunts in that costumes once you got going?
Well, just by the nature of what we were doing, where I take a lot upon myself because in the first movie, the original stunt team of the Turtles was all Hong Kong stuntmen who worked for Golden Harvest, which was making Jackie Chan movies, and before that made Bruce Lee movies. So if you're going to make movies in Hong Kong and be a stunt guy, the top guys are working for these companies. So they're world class. So here they are working on Ninja Turtles. So this is where I take a lot upon myself. I got to the point where I was performing with those guys doing, that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, as a world class, I feel like I'm doing world class martial arts here. Once you do that at a high level, like any sport, you're putting your full body into it. It's very exertive and exhaustive when you're doing things at that level. Take whatever you're doing, whether it's figure skating or wrestling or dancing or martial arts, and then put on a deep diving suit and then try to do that same thing in it.
Sure.
So in terms of being horrible, people always ask me if it was fun being a Ninja Turtle. And I say it's exciting being a Ninja Turtle, but it sucked being a Ninja Turtle. Because you were in a 65-pound suit, weighed down with sweat for 12 hours a day, couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't scratch yourself because your hands are encased in these foam rubber tri-fingered things. It was a real test of physical endurance to be a Ninja Turtle. So, no, it wasn't fun. It was super exciting. But my martial arts, what happened was I was trying to pursue that, becoming an action hero in the movies. And so in North Carolina, where I grew up, Dino De Laurentiis, who's a very famous movie producer, he produced Flash Gordon with Sam Jones and Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger and a lot of other movies not like that, Serpico and other Academy Award-winning movies. Dino De Laurentiis built a movie studio in North Carolina, started making movies there. And since I lived in North Carolina, I started going down there during my summers to try to figure out how to break into the movies. Like, what can I do? Can I be an extra? Can I work? I was just so attracted to this thing. And here they took Hollywood, which was so 3,000 miles away and just dreams for me. And they put it 4 hours away in this one city. And I was like, my gosh, that's like the land of Oz for me. If I can get down there and somehow get into the castle, I can meet the great wizard and all my dreams are going to come true. That became my kind of quest. So I would go down there. I try to work as an extra. But every time I worked as an extra, I couldn't get into the movie studio. I was always hired to work on location at a restaurant or at a bar or somewhere outside or whatever it was. So I was like, man, I got to get inside that studio somehow. So with my lifelong love of pizza, I knew that everybody opens their door for the pizza guy. So I dressed like a Domino's pizza delivery guy. I got a couple of pizza boxes and I drove to the movie studio and I pulled up to the guard shack. And by then it was literally a guard shack because this was before 9/11 and all the security that is around the world now. Just pulled up the guard shack, rolled down my window, and the security guard looked out and I said, yeah, I got a delivery for production. And production is the generic term for whatever movie is being made somewhere on the lot. And the guy looked at me and he looked at his clipboard and I was concerned. I thought, I'm not like, and he kind of leaned forward. I thought he was going to put his hand on me. And he leaned forward and he went, all right, just go in here and turn left and then look back there. They're back there. So I drove onto the lot. Now, again, mind you, I feel like Dorothy pulling into the land of Oz. I don't know what's there, but I know that if I get past those walls, I'm in. So I'm in. I go and I park my car and I cover up my Domino's uniform and I walk around the corner and they're shooting a movie there. It's this action movie. There's this gunfight and a car screeching around the corner. I mean, it's awesome. There's so many people on a movie set that I just kind of backed into a corner and I sat there and I watched for a while. And ultimately, through that, I got to meet the people who were in charge of casting extras for the movies. And so they ultimately told me, now this story goes on, which I wrote a whole book about the story. And I don't want to take up all our time with all the details. So I'm jumping a lot of really juicy little parts to get to the end. But if you guys are interested, I wrote a book and you can read the whole thing. I mean, I'm not trying to sell you a book, but all these stories are in there if you like this kind of stories and stuff. So they said, hey, you want to come audition for this movie? And they couldn't tell me what it was. And I was like, yeah. They're like, yeah, we want to hire local martial artists to come down and be bad guys and get beat up by the heroes. Now, at this point, she didn't tell me what the movie was or what it was called or anything. It was a secret project. And I was like, yeah, of course I want. This is my life's dream. Of course I want to audition for this thing. So ultimately, a bunch of delays happened. The movie was going to go to Canada, and it was going to come back, and it's still a mystery. Finally, one day they called me and they said, hey, come audition. The mystery martial arts movie is going to start shooting in August, I think it was. And I was like, okay. So I drove down to 4 hours back to that movie studio, ultimately ended up doing a martial arts demonstration and audition for Pat Johnson, who's a legendary martial arts guy. He was in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee in a small part. He trained Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka for the Karate Kid movies. He's the referee at the end that says, go to your sensei, with the mustache. So he was in charge of all the Ninja Turtle stuff. I got to audition for him, and I got hired. And my first job out of college was being a ninja in a martial arts movie. And I got hired to be one of the foot soldiers in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then a whole bunch of stuff, and it happened as a foot soldier. I became the fellow chucker that goes against Michelangelo, and I did all this foot soldier stuff. And then early on in the movie, the guy that was Raphael from Hong Kong, he broke his nose in the scene in Central Park with Casey Jones. As soon as that guy broke his nose, he couldn't wear the Raphael costume anymore, and the producers needed somebody fast, so they went to the stunt coordinator, Pat Johnson, and said, who have you got that we can put in this suit? And based on all the things I had done as a foot soldier, and I had written a letter to Pat Johnson explaining my dreams and my goals, he came to me and he said, Ken, if you can fit in the Raphael suit, you're the new Raphael. And I was like, let's go, man. So they walked me up to the Henson company. Jim Henson's group had the Henson Creature Shop right there on the movie lot. And I walked into the Henson Creature Shop, and they pulled out all these Raphael parts. And I wasn't a skinny little stuntman from Hong Kong that weighed 125 pounds. I was 145 pounds of mesomorphic American meat. And I had to squeeze myself into this custom-made suit for that little Hong Kong guy. And I sucked in my stomach, and I did everything I could to get in this thing. And ultimately, there's a couple parts I couldn't fit in, and that kind of scared me. But they went in the back and they got like Leonardo's feet. Leonardo's feet were bigger than Raph's or something like that, and I had to put it apart. So I kind of got Frankenstein together, and then they put that head on me, and they were just like, "Congratulations, you're the new Raphael." And then that point really changed, now my whole life.
Yeah, yeah. I've got one question about being in the suit, but before that, I gotta ask, how many times did you smack yourself in the face when you were doing the fellow trucker scene, which, by the way, is one of the most iconic scenes in Turtle history?
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Over time, I've come to see how beloved that scene is.
Yes.
It's always been my favorite scene in the movie. Selfishly, of course, it's my favorite scene in the movie, alongside the scene where Raphael saves April O'Neil in the subway from the foot
Mm.
soldiers and comes out and jumps and fights, because that's me doing that too. And I was like, and that's a very significant. It's the first time you ever see a live action Ninja Turtle in full frame fighting bad guys on screen. And it's me
Yep.
coming out from behind that pole. Ah! So love that. Love those scenes. So that's what become one of my favorite scenes as well, or it was. And with the nunchucks, they were, again, this sounds like bragging, but it's the truth, and it's just what it was. I was young, I was good, I was fast, but I was doing the nunchucks in that scene, and they were like, it's too fast. The camera can't see it. So they took the nunchucks that I had, and they painted a silver stripe all along the sides of the nunchucks, so that as they're spinning, it looks like glints of light coming off these things. So it gives it a little more substance in the air. Now, mind you, I'm not trying to brag. These weren't heavy duty wooden nunchucks. They were safety chucks. And so they were super light. But yeah, dude, I was trying to, each time I didn't necessarily do the same thing. I was doing, if I'd known the camera was as high as it was, I would have done some of my moves higher in frame, but I didn't know what their framing was. And I do a couple of things around my waist that you see my arm doing it, but you don't see the chucks, and I'm spinning them like a helicopter blade. Anyway, it's badass. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's somebody recently sent me a couple of years ago some of the outtakes. I don't know where they got them, but they have outtakes of that scene, and it's me doing it a couple of times between my legs, and I come up and I hit myself right between the eyes. Boom! Ding.
Oh.
So yeah, it happens a couple of times, but again, there were safety checks, so it was more funny than painful.
Gotcha. That's fair. So when you're wearing the suit, and the fact that obviously it's already bulky as it is, right? There's an animatronic in the actual head. Does that mess with you at all while you're on it, or is that something that just kind of moves on its own and you just were able to do what you got to do while it was doing that?
Well, part of what you're doing when you're in the suit as an actor, like I was in the second movie with the head
Yeah.
with the animatronics in it, you're not trying to ignore it, and you're not trying to let it bother you. It's part of the overall process that you're working in tandem with a puppeteer from the Henson Group off screen. And together, that's the machinery. That's how he manifests his creativity visually,
Okay.
through those electronic motors using remote control and all that stuff. And what you're doing inside the suit is you're trying to create emotive body and expression and everything that it takes to bring that to life. So when you're inside the suit, you've got it's 27 different electronic motors that are mounted on this sort of a polyurethane skull cap that you wear. And they're controlling the eyes and the lips and the eyelids and just everything in a face that you could have. Imagine 27 muscles that they've created. And that's what makes the Henson stuff so amazing, and why the Turtles were so realistic and so beloved, because it was a Jim Henson creation, and this was
Right.
cutting edge stuff at the time. So this puppeteer is off screen with this great big control device and lasers that are pointing. He's wearing headphones that have lasers pointed towards his lip and his chin and his cheek. And so the puppeteer is actually going, "What's up, dude? Hey, April, come on over here." And that's going via remote control to a computer that's suspended underneath the turtle shell. up a cable through the neck and then into the head, where ultimately the face goes and kind of moves all around. So when you're inside that suit and you're trying to work with that guy, you've got all that electronic stuff going on around you, just like there's a lot of other processes of filmmaking. But you inside still have to emote, create, be in the moment with that person and try not to be part. And it's part of the job too. You know, it's not like you're doing Shakespeare on a stage and somebody's running a popcorn machine next to your head. It's a part of the accepted process of what you're buying into from the beginning is, hey, you've got this contraption on your head and this is what you got to do. Let's make it work. And so leading up to it, we actually did exercises with the puppeteers where we would put on the turtle heads and do charades and play games. And we would actually do improv comedy where the puppeteers were making jokes and forcing the turtles to talk, but we had to back it up with whatever they were talking about and doing. Yeah, if I was a dog and I was walking along, I'd be doing this. And so we did all these exercises to try to create harmony between that so that you could blend with what was going on around you. Now, it was loud and it was hot because you had all these motors going, creating heat and all that around you. So that sucked. But It was an amazing thing to be part of the overall process of what it was with the Henson Group.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two that you were in were, like, I love the original three. I don't want to say equally, but they all meant something to me. But out of every Turtle project that's came out since, the two that you were in, number one and number two, were by far the best in my personal opinion. It's my personal opinion. Don't kill me, people. But I think they were the best. And not only that, but I think the animatronics took it to the next level. So that's cool to hear the story of how that worked. So when you were done doing the stunt part in part one, was your work that you did there is what got you into being the actual actor for Raphael in part two, or was that something or how did that story come about?
You're always going to uncork it. Here it comes. So the whole time that I'm working on the first movie, I'm loving what I'm doing. And you also don't know what you got till it's gone. Ultimately, I did everything in the Ninja Turtle movies. I was a foot soldier. Not everything, but I was a foot soldier. I was an action stunt turtle, and then I was what you call an actor turtle. So I did everything except really get to perform as a guy whose face you can see somewhere in the movie. So going through that process of moving during the first movie, I used to look at the actors, and so much of the film production was concentrated on them. They were so very, very important to what was happening. And they're the story and the art and the drama and all that stuff. And I kept looking at them, and I wasn't trying to be a stunt man. I was trying to be an action hero who's an actor and all these things. So I was looking at these guys that were the Ninja Turtles, and I was like, I want to do that. I could do that. So I was jealous of them, but I was also inspired by them and in awe of them. So when the first movie ended, Pat Johnson said to me, hey, Ken, just stand by your phone. I know you want to move to California and go do your things, but they're already talking as they move forward about making a sequel. So just be around. And if we make a sequel, I want you to come back and do all the action and fighting for Raphael again. And I was like, woo, that's awesome. But right in my head, being like the little engine that doesn't want to stop, I thought to myself, well, I don't want to be a stuntman. I want to be an actor. I want to be one of those number one guys that I saw in the first movie. So I said to Pat Johnson, hey, Pat, boy, I really love that. But, I really would love to be one of the actor turtles. So if I could do that, that'd be great. And I can't remember if he laughed or he kind of scoffed like I was an asshole, but he goes, just be happy with what you got. And I was like, okay, thank you, Pat. It's cool. So it was probably a couple of weeks later or whatever, the phone rings. Again, this is before cell phones. I pick it up and I hear, Ken, my son. And I'm like, Pat Johnson? And he goes, I just want you to know that Josh, who played Raphael in the first movie, is not coming back. But you didn't hear it from me. Click. And he just hung up. And I was like, okay. So I went to my call sheet. I saved my original call sheet from the first day I was on the Ninja Turtles because a call sheet has everybody's phone numbers on the back, everybody on the crew. So it had contact numbers for the producers. At the very least, it had their office numbers. So I called the contact number for one of the producers from the movie that I knew from the first movie. And his name was David Chan. He was from Golden Harvest in Hong Kong, but he worked in Los Angeles or Vancouver, I think. So I called him up and I said, hey, David, it's Ken. And I heard that Josh isn't coming back for the movie, and I'd really like to be Raphael, if I could, or whatever I said. And he said, well, Ken, we thought you were going to be part of the stunt crew. And I said, I know, but I think I could really do this. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I convinced him to say to me, okay, well, here's what I want you to do. Make a videotape of you doing some scenes from the first movie as Raphael. Talk like him, move like him, walk like him, and then send us the videotape. And I was like, okay. And he goes, but you got to send it to me by Monday morning. And I was like, and this was like Friday. I was like, okay. There's overnight services and shit like that, I think. So I put on a green t-shirt and I go in my front yard. My friend gets a VHS. This is back when he used VHS. My friend takes a VHS camcorder and he records me, and I act like Raphael and I talk like Raphael. And I'm like, cricket, you got to know what crumpet is to understand cricket. And I'm trying to do all this stuff and I'm throwing my arms around. I do all these scenes. And then I open the phone book to find out where the nearest Federal Express is, or 24 hours. And I realize that it's Memorial Day and nothing's open on Monday. And he said, it's got to be there on Monday. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do something about this. So I eventually looked in the Yellow Pages. I made some calls. I drove to the airport and I paid Delta Airlines $135 to fly the tape to wherever he was in LA, I think, and deliver it to him the next day. And that was a lot of money for me back then. I mean, it's not like I was rich off the first movie or anything, but I was like, well, this is worth it. I know I'm going to be working as a stunt guy, so it's worth the investment. So I sent him the videotape. And then ultimately I called him the following couple of days and I said, hey, I just wanted to know, did you get the tape? And he goes, yeah, we got the tape, but we're going to audition. We have like 50 or 60 guys. We're going to audition out here. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, well, go do what you got to do. What I eventually came to find out was they thought it would be very difficult to replace me as the stunt guy. Because once you're doing stunts in the thing at a high level, it's like, okay, well, we don't want somebody else to have to learn. He already knows what he's going to do. But Pat Johnson went to them and said, hey, look, and it was very easy for him because there's a lot of martial artists out there, especially at the time, that were much, much better than me. And they ended up working on the movie. And Pat Johnson said to the producers, no, don't worry. I can replace Ken with the stunts if he can do that. And he's already used to being in a turtle suit. So he's going to be great. So they eventually called me back and said, congratulations, you're the new Raphael. And that was it. That's how it ended up kind of moving. It was preparation meets opportunity, so it's luck.
Yeah, absolutely. To buy your book, man, because you sound like you got a lot of cool stories, and especially for somebody like me, who's these movies were such an important piece of my background. Like, because for me, professional wrestling was my number one and still is number one thing in life. Ninja Turtles was right there. So, like, I literally watch these movies almost every single day. So hearing these stories is actually pretty cool. Now, for a couple more minutes, I got you. I did want to touch on the thing that I talked about in the intro. You directed training films for the CIA. I was reading. What was that all about? Because that sounds like that was something a little bit different, a little bit cool.
Yeah, I can't talk about it.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding you.
All right, we got to take a break in the action and let you know about my brand new Patreon account. It is www.patreon.com/TheRoseShowPod. Now, what I want you to do is go there and join absolutely free. You're going to get show announcements before anyone else. You're going to get bonus episodes not posted anywhere else except this account. You're going to get info on upcoming events and dates that I'm not posting anywhere. And it is all, again, absolutely free. So what are you waiting on? Go join now, support the show, and don't forget, no matter where you're watching this on, to like and subscribe.
Yeah, because of my work in doing stunts and action and all that kind of stuff, I got to know a lot of different people who worked in arms, guns and stunts and all this kind of stuff. And because I wanted to be more than an actor, I went to college to study film so I could be an action hero and work in the movies and be a movie star and fly in helicopters and all that kind of crap that would come with it. So I wasn't just acting. I was kind of what they call a filmie. I could do all the things. It didn't matter. I just wanted to be on a movie set, all the time. And so in being on a movie set, you start to learn, all right, let me do this, let me do that. Ultimately, you put all the pieces together. I want to direct now. So I started directing short films. I started directing action sequences. Next thing you know, I was getting hired to work as a second unit director for shows on the Discovery Channel and the History Channel. So it was my job to go out and find stunt guys, bring all the stunt guys in, coordinate the action and fighting with those guys, and then work with the director of photography to shoot and do the whole thing. And so once you start doing that, a lot of different doors can open up in strange places. And then I got a call from this company, a producer that I worked with before, that said, hey, I need you to come out and coordinate some action and this and that, and so on and so forth. And so it turned out to be training films for the CIA. And all of a sudden, I'm out there and we're working, and we've got scripts that are completely redacted. You can't see all this stuff. And we're going through the process of various action pieces that I can allude to, in which it's like the consequences of making bad decisions and things you might have to face and do at certain times and all this. So it was a lot of fun. It felt like I was contributing to something cool in like the real world action hero way through using my creative skills in filmmaking. And then I just got to do more and more of that, and ultimately, create and sit at the helm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you said you always wanted to be an action hero. That was your goal. And for somebody like me, you did it. Like I said, these movies were a huge part of my life. I watched them no less than 300 times a piece. I absolutely loved them. And I like the fact that you said your first and second moments of the very first one that you liked the most were also two of my favorites, the nunchuck scene, obviously, and the subway scene with Raphael. Those were definitely my two. That and the overall apartment fire scene in the first one was my favorite. And then from start to finish in number two, that number two is on top of the list of the hierarchy for me. That is such a classic film. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you did on those, because for somebody like me that for so many years, that was all I had was my VHS tapes and what I was into. And it was a big part of my life. So I definitely got to say thank you for the work you did on that. It means a lot to me and millions others, if not billions out there throughout time. So what I'd like to do for the last couple minutes I have you is, if there's anything you would like to plug, social media accounts, the book, where we can buy your book, anything at all, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, if people want to know more or hear more about this stuff, if you go to Amazon, or you can go to turtleconfessions.com. That's easy to remember, turtleconfessions.com. If you go there, that takes you basically to my author site. There's clicks over to Amazon where you can purchase this book. It's called Teenage Ninja to Mutant Turtle, Becoming the Real Raphael. And it's the story about how I became Raphael. It's all the details, a lot more stuff we didn't cover today a little bit. And then it's the majority of the book is behind the scenes stories of making the first two movies. From my perspective, what went on, what happened, what went wrong. A lot of stories that without these books, people would never know or anything like that. I don't tell people about this book because I'm trying to sell books. I don't care. I don't make money off the books. They're $9.99 on Amazon. And so the reason I wrote it was twofold. One is after doing cons and meeting the fans, and it's such a beautiful experience and honor and blessing in life to be on one side of the exchange that happens between the Ninja Turtle fan world and then being within the Ninja Turtles themselves. I always tell people my perspective is from behind the mask. Everybody else is kind of looking towards the masks. So it's a little bit different. So the joy of being the recipient of, as you just shared with me a moment ago, and thank you very much for that. And I realize you're directing the value that you put on this overall thing of Ninja Turtles. I'm in the glorious position to be just a simple, humble human that you can say that to, but it's so much more than me. I'm just a guy in a Muppet suit doing my one little part of this overall thing. So to be on that part of the exchange and be able to receive that from people is so beautiful. And I know after doing this for a long, long time, at least what I believe is the people who get the opportunity to meet, whether it's a comic book artist or a cartoon voice or somebody like me, they would like to know more. They want to hear more about the experience. They want to tell you about their joy and how much it means to them. But if they could sit down with you and have coffee or a Dr. Pepper or whatever it is and just ask you questions, they would, you know? So I've known that. And over time, I love that. I love sharing. And so I took the time to take my experiences and my stories and all the things that I think would be interesting to fans, whether I'm right or wrong. But all those 5-star reviews can't be wrong, Jay. Whether I'm right or wrong, I told my truth, and my truth isn't necessarily exactly what happened because it's through my filter of what I kind of remember. And there's been 30 years of partying between now and then, and all this craziness, and so. But it's my perspective, and so I encourage anybody who really loves those first, especially the first two. I didn't have anything to do with the third, but if you love the first two Ninja Turtle movies and the movies themselves and the Ninja Turtles, this book is going to be a joy, I think, for you to read. It's funny, it's fun, it's self-deprecating. I know where I fucked up in life, and I'm not afraid to talk about it in the book. So go on Amazon, go to turtleconfessions.com. From there, I think you can find all my social media. I'm Kenjitsu. They spell my name with 2 N's, Kenn, and it's Kenjitsu on Instagram. I'm Kenn Scott Raphael. I'm not hard to find if you just type in Kenn Scott, Kenn with 2 N's, into Google or whatever. I encourage people to come find me. I have a lot of fun. I go to Comic Cons and I blast photos of the great times that I'm having with the celebs that I'm meeting and hanging out with, and the fans and fan art and costumes. I have a lot of good times at cons sharing all that information and traveling around the country with my cast in this thing called Celebration, where all of us from the original movies are traveling together. It's great. So I guess the only other thing I would say is Google or look up Turtle Celebration, and that's spelled shell like seashell, SHELLABRATION, Celebration. If you Google that, my dog who's barking in the background can tell you even more about all the social media we have. Anyway, that's the stuff. Check those things out. I have a lot of fun doing it. I'm hooked up with other people from the movie on social media, so you can follow. You'll see them too, Judith Hogue and Ernie Reyes Jr., and we're all just having a great time. So find me through turtleconfessions.com and join up.
Awesome. Ken, thank you so much for your time today, bro. I appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure, Jay. Cowabunga, dudes.